I want to preface this video by saying, feet are weird. Previously I showed how to model the base body and hands using core loops. This is where you establish important rings within the typology to get the volume in areas that need it. This is all part of my 3D anime character series, where I'll be making this character in full. So without any more delays, let's get into making a foot. If you saw my previous video where I created the hand, I created the mesh at the required poly count. This time, however, I'm experimenting with constructing it at lower poly first and then applying a subdivision modifier afterward. The leg we need to connect into consists of 20 edges, so the first loop I'm creating will just be 10. I'll end up creating more faces here out of necessity, but at the end of the video I will show how I connect the foot into the body and resolve the edge count mismatch. I'm only using my drawing as a rough guide to get the scale because it isn't a great indicator of the shape that I want. Like always, I have a pure ref board with a bunch of images I refer to when trying to get the correct shape. Yes, basically I spent a lot of time collecting pictures of feet. Did I mention I find feet weird? Here at the back I'm adding a couple more loop cuts. This is so I can extrude out to create a good outline for the Achilles. For now I'm going to leave these lines fairly simplistic and create another loop circling around the top and bottom of the foot. I made this one 8 faces for now, however later I will add more cuts here to help connect it into the toes. I bridged these 2 loops to get a good idea how they will connect, and moved on to positioning a quad for the ankle. Here I place loops for each of the toes. They consist of 6 faces each, and their placement has somewhat of an arc. To get this roughly right, I refer back to my reference board. I am marking the knuckles with some quads that I will later extrude out to mark the tendons that will run along the top of the foot. This loop that will mark the heel section is the last one before I start to fill out the areas in between. I'm placing another quad here for the inside ankle, which is offset higher than the outside one. When filling out, I'm trying to make the geometry consistent on either side, so I can add more loop cuts if necessary. This blue quad isn't necessary as I found later I needed more edges along the bottom of the foot anyway. Nonetheless, I end up loop cutting into the blue sections of the Achilles instead to get the extra edges. Here I'm bridging the spaces between the toes. If you watched the previous video when I did the hand, I had a lot more faces here due to how the fingers deform. It's less important for the toes as I won't rig them up individually. Now to mark the tendons. I'm placing triangles here to reduce the geometry. These tris will actually revert back to quads when we apply the subdivision modifier later. Now comes to filling out the bottom of the foot. I'll admit that I had a little trouble here at first, so I'll skip forward to when I started again and solved it properly. Here I'm adding in 2 loop cuts along the blue areas that mark the Achilles tendon, giving me 5 faces along the bottom of the foot. As previously mentioned, the triangulated quad I marked in blue could be converted into 2 quads to give the same amount of required geometry here instead. I need to convert 9 edges into 5, so the simple solution is to place triangles between all the toes. The subdivision will then turn these into quads later. The basic shape of the foot is done. Now it's time to add some toes. These are just the basic shapes, as I will come back and rework them a lot after I've applied the modifier. With the basic geometry down, I can now spend some time shaping the foot with the sculpting tools, mostly using the grab, inflate and smooth. I'm reducing the typology here to make it easier to connect to the body mesh later. I suggest keeping edges like this an even number, as it will make it easier to scale them up or down appropriately. I did attempt to make the nail while the modifier was active, but it didn't really work out, so I'll skip forward to where I revert the changes. Some areas like the ankle here can't really be shaped with the lower level of geometry, so I will shape these areas after I've applied the subdivision. Sometimes I will dissolve some edges with the X key to reduce the mesh's density, such as here on the knuckle area. Here I'm adding more loop cuts and dissolving others to simplify the mesh, then using the edge slide feature by hitting G twice to even it out. Like how I did the fingernails on the hand, I'm inserting faces with the I key to create the nail bed. I will then extrude these faces up and out at the end to create the actual nail. Because the start position of the nail was a little too far down, I ended up reconstructing it a little. Next is to use the same approach with the second toe. I will use this one as the basis for the rest. and marking the edges of the nails with sharps so that they stand out better with the auto smooth settings on. I also shifted the knuckles down a phase here as their position was a little off. With them repositioned, it's back to shaping and sculpting them. I'm now copying the second toe to replace the others, ready to reshape them later. I had a bit of an issue with verts merging at the nail beds. That is because when I copied them over I had the auto merge button set at the top right, so here I'm using the knife tool to fix it. The elastic tool came into use here to get a better arc for the toes. This tool tends to deform the mesh a lot, so it may require you to go back in with a grab tool to realign things afterward. Now it's time to connect it to the body. First I duplicated the foot and changed the materials over. You can see that the two don't align at the moment, so I'll try to get them as close as possible. With the merge button on, I'll connect the verts. This first attempt is just to get an idea how it all aligns. At the moment, the foot has 22 edges and the body has 20, so it's a case of finding the area where the density is too high and merging 3 verts, resulting in a triangulated quad. As mentioned earlier, this is why it's generally a good idea to keep your edges even. Once they are roughly aligned, I select 2 opposite edges and bridge them with the F key. Then select the perpendicular edge and continue to hit F to fill out the area. You can see at the back here there is still quite a lot of twist, but this is easily solved with some tweaking. Using the smooth tool, I run around the connected area and even it all out. Then I use the grab tool to neaten it up, realigning it to the guide. Lastly, I straighten up some of the loops by scaling them to 0 on the Z-axis. And with that, the feet are now connected to the body and our base body mesh is done. When it comes to adding clothing, a lot of the mesh will be culled. However, now that we have a base, we can reshape it and use it for other characters or clothing in the future. Having a basic body to create clothes around makes the entire process much easier as well. I won't be adding clothing just yet though, as next I'll be working on the face. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. If you found this video helpful, please leave a comment and a like, as it will allow me to make more videos like this in the future. I'll be trying to release a video a fortnight, but if you support me on Patreon, I will release them there early. Speaking of which, thanks to those who support me there. Since you made it this far into the video, why don't you click on the link here and see how I constructed the hands? And if you want to do none of that, would you kindly bugger off?
Maybe.